the origin story of Sunnybrook, I think, is a great one. And because it's not grand, it's actually quite quiet. And at least the way I imagine it, Ermengarde Hoff, she came to Canada from Vienna after the war years as a young person. And she was intended to go into medicine for whatever reason. I think maybe her parents were in medicine, or she imagined herself going into medicine. But then sort of reluctantly, and maybe that's not the right word, but that's how I imagine it, she saw that there needed to be something in education for kids, that things could be done better, that things could be done differently. And there were a number of reasons why she thought that was so. And one of them was that it's something that was in the air at the time, Montessori schools and the Frobo method, and these things that were schools that were addressing themselves to children in a very personal way, that it wasn't about the person at the front of the room with the chalk and the ruler, and it's all very constructed in that way, but it was about getting kids to be themselves and to express themselves. And so that was an idea that she obviously really liked. And so she started in 1952 this school, the first preschool, I think, in Canada, or the first school of its kind in Canada. And then very quietly just started doing something that today is very common for all the reasons that she intended it to be, that she felt that it should be. And one of them was that women were entering the workforce. And so mothers needed some support in this, so we could create a school that does all these things for kids, but also has this political space in the world for women who want to go out and work, that this will support them as well. And from day one, it had, that before school and after school care, and really operating with the needs of families, particularly women at that time, in mind. It is a neighborhood school. It fits within a neighborhood. It's in sort of a residential neighborhood. And this is all not just by happenstance. It's very intentional. It's kind of the profile that the school has wanted to have for itself and that's cultivated for itself. It's not just small just because it is. It's small because that's what it's supposed to be. It is meant to be a community school that has a community that meshes well with the community that it's within, and offers something important to that community. And in that sense, it's just a school that it doesn't pretend to be something it's not, in the sense that it's very comfortable in its own skin. It is exactly what it wants to be, and it has a confidence in that. And I think that's one of the great strengths of the school. I think it's wonderful that the school was founded, and I think this is a great sign of health in a school, is if you have a very consistent leadership over the life of the school. I mean, if you see a school and the leadership has changed every year for the last 20 years, that's not a very good sign. And certainly Sunnybrook is the exact opposite. It's remarkable in that it's been around since 1952 and has had only 3 heads of school. And even within that, you have Ermengarde Hoff. She founded it and ran it. Her daughter, Irene Davy, then took it over and ran it. And now it's Tara-Leigh Brunn. And so, 3 leaders. And Tara-Leigh's been there for almost 30 years. And so there's this clear, unbroken line of leadership. And Irene Davy is still involved in the life of the school. And I think that says a lot. And I think parents should look at that and appreciate what that means, is that it has this very consistent leadership, and that the school has always been referred back to those ideals that were brought to it when it was founded, which are very important ideals, very important values, and they've quietly enacted them throughout the entire life of the school. And I think Tara-Leigh's personality is exactly that. I think she found a home for herself, in a sense. She saw that the school was doing the things that she feels schools should do. And it's just a very comfortable fit, and it was from day one. And she came on as a teacher and has grown into the whole thing. And I think speaking with her says a lot about what the school is. And again, it's her personality. She's very confident. She is intentional, and just very down to earth. And I think the families that come to the school really do appreciate that. And I think as well they should. She's there, available. She's poking her head into the classrooms on a regular basis, again, meeting them every morning. And I think that's what the parents really respond to. we can say that this is an environment that's built for kids first. And so what do kids find comfortable? They want to spend their days in these grand auditoriums. They want to interact in smaller spaces with smaller furniture. Also, the things like the drama classroom has a little stage in it. I love that too. You have these schools that build grand auditoriums, and they're impressive. But there's something to be said for having a drama room that is at the kid's level, that is at the scale of the child. So so they don't call the classrooms, they call them studios, which is a great thing. And I mean, they've been doing this for decades. They call them studios. And why is that? It seems like it's just a word. But again, it's about the posture that the school takes to its students. Are these students sitting at our feet, drinking in our knowledge or whatever we choose to give them? Or is it more of a relationship? And that's what the word studio kind of really says, that you sit it's not a classroom where you sit in the desks and you look at the board and you take in all that information. Rather, it's that these spaces are spaces that we're going to live and work within and share ideas and work together and be creative and talk to each other. And so that word studio is quite lovely. And I think then when it came time for the PYP program, it kind of was just an extension of exactly everything that I'd already been doing, is that, getting kids together around questions and problems and asking them, what do you think about this? And what's a possible solution? And what tools can we bring, or what knowledge can we bring toward these solutions, and enacting these solutions and being active and all of that. So I think when parents see their kids coming through the primary years program, and when they come time to graduate, and parents do say this, is that they're confident, that they are willing to talk to each other and talk to one another and talk to somebody that maybe they don't know so well. They're more outgoing. Even the kids that are shy just have learned that their voice is desired, that people want to hear what they have to say, and that they're very comfortable in doing that. So they're curious and they're outgoing and they're confident. And I think that's what the PYP really gives the kids, and that's what they take when they leave. To some extent, I think students, it's just like a fish in water. I don't know that they could actually reflect on what it is that's unique about this environment or what they like about the environment. But what you will see when you talk to them is that they really just feel so comfortable, that it really is like a home, and that this is their village. And I think, again, when people talk about the school being small, I think the other word they could use is it's a village. And it's not this grand city, but it's just a village that the kids spend their time in, and I think feel very comfortable within. And I'm not sure that they could reflect on it. A lot of them, I think it's very typical at this school that students start at JK and they stay there right through grade 6. So they have nothing to compare it to. It just is what it is. But when you see how they behave and interact within it, and the level of confidence and how comfortable they are, I think that says a lot about what the school is in their lives. I think, there are some schools, and we can think of them, that are almost like a prize to be won. And they're very conspicuous in different ways. And Sunnybrook is the opposite of that. It is about children, no matter where they're coming from, all the different diversity of the city. I think is really reflected in the student community at this school, because it's about that. The school is not a prize to be won. It is just a very good school, and I think everybody can appreciate that. And so the student body isn't just one aspect of the demographic of the city. It's sort of all of it. I think when you see kids that are very confident. And I think that one of the reasons is because it is a small student. There's about 140 students there. And they're known, from the minute they arrive. Teachers know their names, students know their names. That just gives an air of confidence to the kids, not kind of an overbearing confidence, but just that again, feeling comfortable in your own skin. And I think that's what you see with these kids as they move about the spaces, as they interact with each other. So everything's familiar to them. The teachers are familiar. You don't start a new year and all of a sudden you have 2 new teachers that you've never seen before. It's more just the whole experience from JK through grade 6. It's a consistent experience with all these familiar faces. I think a lot of schools talk about innovation and they point to big things. They point to their STEM labs today anyway, their STEM labs and all these big things and equipment and exciting buildings and all that. But there are other ways of innovating. And I think that Sunnybrook has innovated over the years throughout its life by just having a posture of openness, of saying, what are the options available to us? And let's follow them up, knowing that this is what we want to do. We want kids to be curious, and we want them to engage with each other, and we want to treat them as people, and we want them to find their voices. So that was sort of where it started out. And then over the years, they found other things that kind of went well with that. And one of them was the primary years program. And again, it was the first in Canada. And I think they also encourage kids to look at the world. And again, something the schools always talk about, what do you want for the kids? Well, we want them to find their voices and to go out and be able to change the world. And I understand what they're saying, and those are good things. But it's important to know that changing the world doesn't have to be huge, that you can change the world in little ways, and that are absolutely very meaningful. And I think the staff and the faculty are always looking for those sorts of opportunities. Let's have the kids learn about the world. Let's have them learn about the global community and all those things, outside the door and outside the country and around the world. But let's do it from their perspective. Let's do it at the kid scale. And I think a great program that I kind of exemplifies that was those years when the Syrian kids were arriving in Canada. The kids, they learned about Syria, but not in the big ways. They learned about, these are people that are coming to our community. What are they going to need? And they made up backpacks. So these kind of backpacks, what would a kid need who's going to school, who's arriving with not much? And so they, made up these backpacks and put in them what they thought the kids would need. That's great. They learned a lot about people and about the world, but they did it again in that kind of at a kid's scale. And I think that's something that you see throughout the programs at Sunnybrook. It's just, the kids are learning big ideas and big things, but they're doing it in these nice, appropriate ways. Yeah, it is balance is a word that comes up a lot, and I think, well, it should, because, it's just that idea that there's a time for all things. There's a time to be loud, and there's a time to be quiet, and there's also a time to be concerned about our marks, and there's a time to maybe not be concerned about our marks, and in all those ways, and about like your academic experience and your social experience. Balancing those things as well. And I think that's why they keep returning to that term. It can be applied to everything that happens within the school. And I think their intention is to think of it that way. Singapore Math was kind of a relatively recent, I guess. It was about 2018. They really brought it on board. And the idea was they just felt that math was an area where kids maybe could be succeeding a bit more, succeeding a bit better. And so they looked at what their options were. And so they adopted Singapore Math. And it's just an approach to the curriculum that's more creative. It's more engaging, so that it's almost like, the way people used to teach math. This is how you do it. It's the way you teach driving a car. Here's the steering wheel and there's whatever. This is how you do it. But ask that person to fix the car when something goes wrong and they haven't got a clue. And I think Singapore Math is sort of along those lines. It's letting kids understand that things work and also why they work, and engaging and seeing the kind of the nuts and bolts within it and engaging with those things as well. And it gives them more confidence with the math than, again, just doing it because this is the steps I was told to do. But if they really know why those steps are there and can work with them, they can even be creative in the way they work with math. But ultimately, it's just they gain more confidence with numeracy. Well, I like the approach that they have to French instruction. I mean, French is an official language of the country. It's important. And although the school is not an immersion school, they do have daily French. And it's not just learning the language and then, conjugate your verbs, but knowing that so much more comes with the language as well. And it's about learning about the cultures of Canada and the French-speaking cultures of the world. And then again, I love that they have this daily experience with French. And I think some parents have said that, they're maybe surprised that the level of fluency that their kids have after the course of their experience at Sunnybrook, because it's not something that's kind of in flashing letters at the front of the school. Your kid is going to leave fluent in French. It's more just that they want kids to understand this is a language, and it's a language that's spoken here, and it has all these cultural aspects as well. And it works very, very well. Yeah, I think when people send their kids to private schools, if you ask them just in the abstract, they'll say, "Why are you going to private school?" And they'll say, "We're going for rigorous academics," is something that comes up, and that's important, of course. But I think families that look to Sunnybrook are looking for a relationship. They're looking for a school that understands them, and they're looking to enter a community that understands them, a community of kindred spirits. And I think that's what parents find when they go to Sunnybrook. They find a school that's tried and true. It's been around a long time. It's been doing great work. It has great established programs. It has the PYP, but it also has a community around it of families and of interest and of kindred spirits. I think too often schools have programs of care or correction that only kick in when something goes wrong. And I think Sunnybrook is one of those places that doesn't treat it that way. Where do we start? Things will go wrong sometimes and we'll have to intervene, but we don't want the kids to be experiencing something different at that moment than they do at every other moment. So if they're always learning about the values of empathy and reflecting on their actions when things are going well, then when something maybe doesn't go as well, and we talk about empathy and sympathy and reflect on our actions and how that made other people feel, that feels less strange. It just feels like a part of that's just how we live. And I think that approach is that the kids there, they need their academic lives, but they also need to develop their social lives. And that includes all those values of respect and empathy and sympathy and interaction and reflection. And those things are part of every day of every kid's life at the school. This feature review has been published as a book, and it's also available online at ourkids.net.